Going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Brave and Faithful podcast. Today, I have another Navy veteran. He is a writer for Bunker Labs, Keith Kappel. Make sure I got that right, Kappel.
You nailed it. You nailed it.
Awesome, Keith. Hey, man. Thanks for taking the time, man. And before we get to talking about Bunker Labs and what you're doing with them, I did mention you're a Navy veteran. Can you just share with our audience a little bit about your military background?
Yeah, sure. So I was a naval intelligence specialist for 4 years with the United States Navy, active duty from December of 97 until 10 September 2001. So my EOS was literally 24 hours before 9/11. I served first, I was at Naval Space Command, which is doesn't exist anymore in the form it used to, but we used to be like a backup center for Cheyenne Mountain, the Peterson Air Force Base guys, US Space Command Air Force. So we used to do backup mission stuff for them. I'm sure Space Force has all of that now.
Yeah, I was gonna
Um,
say.
yeah, the much maligned Space Force. But yeah, so I did that for half my enlistment, and then they sent me to the USS Theodore Roosevelt CVN 71. So I was an aircraft carrier intel shop guy for a little while, and I did through a workup cycle with them. It was like I think I reported to the ship right after they got back from supporting Kosovo military efforts, and then like I said, I left the ship right before 9/11, and we were next up. So it was the Roosevelt that was in like New York City on the 12th or the 13th, and then we were, first into the breach, as it were, at least as far as the Navy goes, first into the breach, in Afghanistan after that. But I didn't participate in any of that because I was at home launching a bartending career and being the bar's best customer as well. So.
So where was home for you?
So, as you might detect from the incredible nasal tones that I'm giving you here on the show, I am from Chicago. So I
Okay.
sound like an exiled blues brother or something like that. But yeah, I'm from the burbs of Chicago, actually, Addison. But I've been living in the city now for 11, 12 years, something like that.
Okay. So, you mentioned that your last day was like September 10th, 2001, right before 9/11. Like how's that? I mean, you had gone out, I mean, within 24 hours or so, right? Like that was your last day. What was what was like the feeling like when, 9/11 hit?
It was crazy. I mean, it was my last day on paper, but I had taken terminal leave. So I was actually home, I want to say like September 1st.
Okay.
But I was still on kind of like an Intel guy schedule. So it was like you wake up, you turn CNN on in the background to listen to what's going on in the world. And you're sort of clicking through news stories because it's just part of like that routine of staying plugged in to like the global sort of situation. So I was very like alert and aware when the first plane hit and it first started getting reported on, and didn't think anything of it. And then that second plane hit, and right away, like I was just reading reports like not long before that, like 2 weeks ago, I was reading like up to date reports on stuff. And so a lot of stuff that has since come out about that day, where you had like stories about guys crossing the Canadian border, and stories about like Saudi nationals training and plane flights. Like a lot of these stories were reports that I had definitely like
You
come across
saw,
during
yeah.
during my time. But like as soon as the second plane hit, like instantly stuff starts puzzling together, and you're like, up. Like almost certainly Bin Laden, almost like X, Y, and Z. Like that moment in The Usual Suspects when the guy's dropping the coffee cup, and like you could tell the light bulb's going off.
Yeah.
Like it kind of felt like that, but like a really horrifying version of that because it was just terrible. But yeah, it sort of like just sat there staring at my phone for probably close to 2 weeks. I don't think I really left my room. I just had the news on. I was learning stuff on the internet, which was a much different place in 2001, as far as like news and reporting and all that sort of stuff. Uh, and yeah, just waiting for my phone to ring because I assumed how could they not call me back?
Right.
In which they did not. It turns out the Intel shop on the Theodore Roosevelt, at least this is the story I got. maybe a year after the guys got back from deployment, was the intel shop was overmanned. We had like 45 dudes. We're only billeted for like 30. So they couldn't justify it to command or whatever. I don't know that I really wanted to come back. There's definitely, I think a lot of veterans who got out just before 9/11 are of two minds about how they probably felt sitting on the sidelines while all that was going on. Because I think there's part of you that says, well, this is the kind of stuff that I joined for. Like, this is where I'm supposed to really serve and do my thing. Uh, and I trained for this, so I know what I'm supposed to be doing right now. And
Right.
I want to show that, I was well trained and I can do it. So there's that part of your brain, and it's fighting with the other part of your brain that's like, do I really want to sweat for 9 months and, the Arabian Gulf while we're blowing up a bunch of people with, airstrikes and stuff? And like, no, no, nobody, I don't think anybody should want to go do that. That's a little concerning. But unless, it absolutely has to be done. So yeah, it was a very conflicted time for me. And there was probably more time than there should have been spent out at the bars trying not to think about it after the first couple of weeks went by. But yeah, it was intense, man. It was a I mean, obviously not nearly as intense as the people who are out there
Right.
engaging in operations, but it was, as transitions go, it wasn't uh, the cleanest break or the easiest one, sort of psychologically, to work my way through, I would say.
So is it fair to say that you had some sort of like conflict within, like mentally, like
Yeah, I mean,
that time?
these other sailors that I had grown so close to, like real dear friends, obviously as a veteran, you know how that is. Like, these are dudes who are out there now doing it, and I'm not there with them. And yeah, that's not, it's not a great feeling to have.
All right.
Um, I mean, I was lucky that at least no one I knew personally was lost either in the attack or among my friends I served with during operations. So I don't have like that sort of survivor's guilt level of thing happening, but I know a lot of other veterans do. I probably have like the Diet Coke version of that, where it's just like I felt bad that I was at home while they all worked, but also I was very glad I was home at the same time.
Yeah. So you mentioned that, after you got out, you worked at the bar, you were a bartender.
Yeah,
Um, so
that's true.
how long did you do that for? And like, what kind of led you into what you're doing now as a writer and with Bunker Labs?
Yeah. So my mom was, I'd moved back home right after I got out. I was only like 22, 23. And I had gotten an educational early out. So I was supposed to be in school, and I was for like 3 semesters. And then I was getting close to my associates, and it comes to that point where it's like, all right, it's time to make the next choice with what you're going to do. And I didn't really have a direction. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And my mom said to me, she's like, well, you spend all your time at the bar anyway. You might as well at least get paid while you're there instead of blowing all the money you separated with. I was like, all right. So I kind of just on a whim applied to bartend, and luckily the owner of that first bar I worked at was a fellow Navy veteran from many many years before me,
Mm.
and so he hired me, and I worked full time behind that bar, a little golf course clubhouse bar, for probably 8 or 9 years until I broke my leg playing paintball with some buddies. So
Mm.
we were out in the woods shooting paintballs, and I was running and my leg got caught under a root, a spiral fracture of either my tibia or my fibia, one of them. And I was laid up, and you can't bartend with a broken leg. It's not an easy thing to do. And you can't, there's not really like workman's comp or, you know,
Yeah.
uh, any of these sort of insurance plans that were going to help me out at the time. I certainly didn't, I thought I was invincible. I didn't think anything would break. Um, so I didn't have a lot of options to keep like paying rent. By then I'd moved on my own. Uh, and so one idea was like, oh, I never really burned through my GI Bill or went to school. I should do that before it runs out and just use that money to like pay rent. So this was my like genius plan, right? Where it's just like, screw it, I'll use my GI Bill to pay rent. It'll be great. And I figured like if I'm just going to school to pay rent anyway, and then I'll go back to my life as a bartender after the fact. I'm going to go and do something that I actually enjoy doing, something that I like. And one of the hobbies I had at the time was writing. I was doing a lot of short story writing and writing in sort of like the fan community for tabletop games, which are like Dungeons and Dragons kind of stuff that you might have seen in like if you watch Stranger Things or anything like that. So these like book and dice, these real geeky like games. I was writing a lot of like fan content, fan comic books, fan short stories of a lot of stuff in the Star Wars. That was what me and my nerdy friends were into at the time. So
Was this during like your bartending while you were
yeah,
bartending?
yeah, it was just
Okay.
like the side, like it was the time before side hustles in a lot of
Yeah.
ways, but it was like a fan thing that we all did together as a way to sort of just revel in our sort of nerdiness, geekiness, and it was the guy who worked at Naval Space Command is the big Star Wars nerd, so I guess that makes sense, right? Uh, but yeah, I was just sort of doing that for fun on the side, but it was fun for me. So I was like, I'll go to school for this and I'll get better. And then, maybe I'll do something with it later, or maybe I won't and I'll just be better at it. And that's good enough for me too. Because at least this, I'll show up to class. At least this, I'll be engaged because I want to get better at it. So I did that and I transferred to Columbia College Chicago here in the city. Uh, and they had an excellent writing program at the time. And it turned out like, I mean, I was the oldest guy in most of my classes at 30. It was a lot of like 19-year-olds. And I was real intimidated on that first day because you assume like everybody's going to be like this 19-year-old writing prodigy, or you know what I mean? That like really knows what they're
Yeah.
doing. And I'm like making geeky stories about Mace Windu. Like, how does, how's that going to go? Like, probably not well, but you know, gave it my best effort. And it turned out I was okay at it. I was pretty good. I participated. I had learned the hard way through all this sort of geeky stuff I was doing, a lot of the early lessons. So I was able to sort of stay ahead of a lot of my classmates because I had learned a lot of stuff the hard way already. So I went through the school program. Because of the geeky stuff I was doing, a good buddy of mine who wrote for like the official Star Wars, like Dungeons and Dragons type of game, he said that there was an open call coming up and I should apply for it because, I've been doing this for so long. Now I have a writing degree. So I applied for this job in an open call and, they asked me to do some writing on official Star Wars stuff, like maybe within a year of graduating from college. So I got like my first break in the industry. It was working on Star Wars, which was like my mind was blown. I was kind of running around the house like a crazy person, as you can imagine, because that's not supposed to happen at all, let alone like on your first sort of application, right?
So it's like
Certainly
your
not the
dream
job
job.
market. Yeah, like for
Yeah.
job one. And that's not the job market of today for sure, but I was real lucky, capitalized on it, and I've contributed to something like 25 different projects for them now as a writer. I'm actually working on something right now. It's not Star Wars, but it's for one of their other game systems. So that keeps me pretty busy. Unfortunately, during the pandemic, a lot of publishing got hit very hard by the pandemic. A lot of our printing gets done overseas in China, and there were a lot of logistical problems just getting stuff back and forth throughout the pandemic. And
Yeah.
paper supply has been a real problem. And paper costs have just been shooting up through the roof. And a lot of these companies I work for, their profit margins are very, very thin. They just can't afford to be in business while conditions are this way. They just can't. So there hasn't been a lot of work for me the past couple of years. And as my savings was starting to dwindle down, I was like, man, I better do something. It's not like I could break my leg and go back to school again. That plan won't work a second time. I mean, I have another leg, but I just don't have an GI Bill left.
Yeah.
So I was like, I better come up with a new plan, and started looking around at what the job market looked like, and who wanted someone with a writing degree that had worked on, some stuff like the Star Wars properties. And I was real lucky that I found Bunker Labs because it's a nonprofit organization, for those that don't know, that helps veterans launch and launch startups, small businesses, and stuff like that. So it's something that I can work for and work on and not feel guilty afterwards. Like a weird amount of the writing work I found was for law offices, many of them representing like these giant funds that pay out for like, oh, the 3M, how you see the commercials for 3M and the hearing loss for guys that served. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, there's this big pile of money, $4.5 billion or whatever has been allocated by the government or whatever that they have to pay out to victims. So like they have people whose job it is to make sure that not everybody gets money, I guess, ultimately at the end of the day. I'm sure there's a good reason for some of it. Like you don't want people taking advantage and taking money they don't qualify for. But like some of it felt a little skeezy. And I was just real glad to find Bunker Labs because I was like, here's something I could like tell people I do and be proud that I do it. Uh, so yeah, that's kind of the long, long, long story of how I found Bunker Labs. Uh,
Did you apply or something, or did somebody mention it to you, or?
yeah, it was just like, it's a funny story. It was a Glassdoor posting is what it ended up being. But like the way job seeking works on the internet right now is like, you try to be real selective for like the first couple days of doing it. And then you don't really get a result from that. So inevitably what happens within a short period of time is you just start like bulk clicking one click apply on like anything that looks vaguely like it fits what you're going to do. And then you sort of wait to see who comes back. And of those, you be picky about who you respond to. So like, that's not the way it's probably supposed to be working, but that's the only real approach for the end user at the moment, in my view, not just for Glassdoor. This is how all of them seem to be. I was on like 5 different sites, sort of clicking around for an hour or two a day. And this is one that came back, and it came back. The fellow who was going to interview me, Chris Franks, who used to be, he was our marketing director. He still works with Bunker Labs through his own marketing company called Clever Funnel. So all of his email and stuff is for his company, like it's branded Clever Funnel. So I literally thought I was going into a job applying for this Clever Funnel company to be like a marketing writer, work from home sort of situation. And like 5 minutes into the interview, it became clear, like they were asking a lot of questions about my veteran status and stuff like that. And I was like, why? And he's like, well, it's for Bunker Labs, and that's who they serve. That's who they work with. And I was like, what? I thought this was for Clever Funnel. Because like you research before an interview, you try to have some questions to ask them. And
Right.
all my questions were about Clever Funnel. I was like, oh man, you're gonna laugh at me, but here's what happened. And Chris Franks, who's a wonderful human being, thought it was hilarious. And but yeah, I went through like 5 other interviews or something, like some crazy amount of interviews over the course of like a month after that before they were finally like, yes, you're going to join the team October 1st if you want. So
Just last year, 2021.
yeah. So it's just been like what, 5 months, I think,
Yeah.
something like that. So
So
it's been great.
so with the short amount of time you've been working there, like can you share a little bit about some of the things that you wrote, some of the pieces you wrote or articles or whatnot? And
Yeah. So we're trying, a big part of my responsibility there is to get like the Bunker blog going. So I've written, excuse me, there's been a lot of like back end stuff that's had to happen. There's been like a new website upgrade recently since I started working there. And a lot of other like just back end update stuff, a lot of turnover in the marketing department. We have a new like marketing director. So a lot changed and things aren't moving quite as quick as I would have liked for them to, but we're on a roll now. So the first sort of real month where we started having regular content was just this past February. And we have a series on pitching, how to refine like your business pitch.
mm,
So that's going to be a 4-part blog series. We have, I think the second part is going up this week at some point, but the first part's already up there, Pitching 101. We've done some entrepreneur spotlights where we take someone like yourself who's been in the Bunker Labs ecosystem, and we sort of just do a nice write up on them, explain what their business is, where the idea for it came from, what the genesis of the business looked like, how they found Bunker, what Bunker did for them, and how things are going now that they've sort of moved on from one of our programs like Veterans in Residence or CEO Circle or something like that. So we've done a few of those. We did one on Beth Finbo, who has the Busy Baby Playmat. She was on Shark Tank and famously like walked away from a huge offer from them. We've done one for Mike Sezu, who does Sanger rum. It's a Liberian West African rum
Mm.
that is just now he's starting to get it imported into the United States through Texas. But he's a very interesting fellow. And then we have a new one coming very soon about a group called Backpacks for Life. And they hand out backpacks full of essentials to homeless veterans. So
Mm.
they're a great organization as well. And these are all people who have come up through the Bunker Labs system and sort of found it. I mean, it's not, they don't have to have found success for us to spotlight them. I feel like there's a lot to learn from people who struggle after the fact as well. But these first few have been people who have really found success after their time at Bunker Labs.
What would you say, Keith, has been some of your rewarding moments? And obviously you haven't worked with Bunker that long, but what would you say have been some of the rewarding moments you've had so far with Bunker Labs?
So Bunker is, I think, at its core, it's like an event-based sort of organization that there's stuff going on like all the time, it seems. So I tend to mostly be a work from home kind of guy. I'm not the most social person that most people have ever met. But I've been to a couple of these Bunker events already, and those have all been eye-opening for me and just very interesting to meet the people, fellow veterans, and hear about, this dream that they might have, this business they're trying to launch, and how that's going for them. And it gives me a lot of perspective when I sit down to write about like who, not just who my audience is, but like who I'm potentially helping by writing something, or potentially hurting if I don't treat it with the care it deserves. So I feel like that's been a really big rewarding experience. There's also one piece we recently put out. It was part of the marketing department's sort of like overall Black History Month push. And I did this great historical article. Well, I'm saying it's great, right? But I did this long historical article. We'll say that that's factual. And it talks about the lives of two men, James Fortin and George Knox. And James Fortin is a black man. He was a free black man sailmaker in Philadelphia during the Revolutionary War, owned a sailmaking business, and was one of the richest men in Philadelphia
Mm.
during the Revolutionary, or well, after the Revolutionary War. But at 14 years old, he was like a powder boy on a privateer ship during the Revolutionary War. He's a POW for 9 months in one of the most deadly prison ships, like during the conflict. Had an amazing life, and he was somebody I had never heard of, and
Right.
I was willing to bet that a lot of my fellow veterans hadn't heard of James Fortin either. And then George Knox was born a slave during the right before the Civil War, and he was actually forced into service for the South, escaped, fought for the North, left Nashville, where he was from, and went to Indiana and launched this like barbershop empire throughout Indianapolis that grew into like a publishing empire, and all these other like sort of side businesses just kept opening up. He like owned local baseball teams. It was wild what
This was
George Knox
after the Civil War.
after the Civil War in Indiana. So he also had an incredible life. And I think one of the most rewarding experiences thus far working at Bunker Labs was just the process of researching this article, learning about these men well enough to be able to write about them with, some measure of factual honesty and all that. So I think that was really great to get that done and get that put out. We're planning to do more historical sort of deep dives like that, and figures from a while ago that I think a lot of veterans, especially veterans of color or female veterans, might not have like a lot of heroes that look like them that they could look back to in
Right.
history that have been very well publicized. So I feel like that's a lane that me is a white dude. Like I feel okay about researching history and regurgitating it, and trying to find as much intellectual honesty as I can in it, versus like telling people how to feel about it or something like that.
Yeah.
Because I think some of these holidays, like you see a lot of companies try to like do something for like a Black History Month or a Women's History Month, or Asian American Pacific and Islander month or something like that, just to be inclusive, which I think is a good instinct always, but I feel like we've seen it go wrong a lot of times. And I feel like, yeah, me as a white man, like I need to probably be aware while I'm doing this stuff that there's it could go wrong if I don't give it the due respect and due diligence and all that. But I'm real proud of how this first history article came out.
Yeah, those are two definitely people that we'd have to look up to because, like you said, two people uh, haven't really been known, right? Like, especially us within the veteran community. So,
Right. Like it's easy for me to be like, oh yeah, Alexander Hamilton or whatever. Like I could find a lot of founding fathers that
right,
have the same face I do, and open up businesses or whatever. But finding veteran entrepreneurs that aren't just white dudes, like it's more of a challenge,
right,
especially the further back in history you go. But it turns out there's tons. It's just these stories never, at least they never got told to me.
yeah,
And granted, I grew up in the suburbs in a semi-affluent neighborhood, and who knows who was deciding what we were learning in school back then. But it wasn't part of my curriculum to learn about James Fortin or George Levi Knox. So I feel like everybody should know those things.
right, right. So Keith, for those who might not be familiar with Bunker Labs, can you just kind of maybe go over quickly like some of the programs they offer and some of the services that Bunker Labs provides?
Absolutely, absolutely. So Bunker Labs is a 501c3. I'm pretty sure I'm getting that right. Nonprofit. It's a nonprofit. That's the important part.
Right.
And what they do is they help veterans launch and found businesses, like their own ventures. So the way we do that is we have three primary programs. We have the Veterans in Residence program, the Ambassador program. I have the hiccups today. I don't know why. And CEO Circle. So Veterans in Residence is like this 6-month long incubator program that helps people really get from I'm about to launch my business or I just launched my business to like I have customers now. And so it's really built to sort of fill that sort of gap. Then we have CEO Circle, which is for people who have like crazy success already. They have like millions of dollars in revenue per year and stuff like that. And it's a place for them to sort of be able to get together and, have iron sharpen iron and all that, where they can, network together and challenge each other. And then we have the Ambassador program, which is our volunteer program that's focused a lot on facilitating that Veterans in Residence program because it's like a local cohort across the country. So you'll have like groups of 10 veterans that are all running businesses in the same city or the same little geographical region. So our ambassadors are volunteers. They volunteer for 1 year, and they'll help facilitate and run the Veterans in Residence, but they'll also sort of help just build the local sort of veteran business or military connected business ecosystem. So they'll help host some events. Summit or Showcase is one of the big events that comes twice a year now, where we sort of show off what some of the program participants are doing, and the ambassadors are sort of like the hosts that throw like I think it's like 26, 27 of these parties nationwide at the same time, same night, twice a year now. So yeah, Bunker Labs does all those things and more. We have several other program or not programs, but we have those three programs. Then we have like 4 other initiatives, like Launch Lab Online, which is sort of a feeder to Veterans in Residence. It's a great program. It's like an online course that'll sort of help you organize your idea into a business,
Right.
and get you going. We have Breaking Barriers in Entrepreneurship, which is a course, a workshop sort of targeted at people who don't look like me. Again, it's to help sort of bridge that, sort of hurdle that barrier that sort of prevents a lot of people of color and women from getting as far as in business as guys like me do, as often as we do. So there's that program, which is excellent, run by Renee Bob, who herself is an inspiration.
Yeah, I just had her on the had her on the podcast too.
Oh
So,
yeah, she's
yeah,
great.
she's great. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a few other things in there. There's like a USA finance course to help you sort of organize your finances around your business, and then there's probably one or two I'm missing. I'm going to get in trouble, but yeah, there's all sorts of programs, courses, and stuff to do. We also have the newly launched Bunker Online, which is our own sort of, which is where we were actually talking earlier. And that's a new online sort of community that anyone can join,
Right.
where you can access a lot of these educational resources and learn about when these program application windows are coming, and get involved, and just talk to people who are part of the ecosystem that are probably a lot like you if you're a veteran and you're running a business. But you can find all that at bunkerlabs.org.
So, question, Keith, with the you mentioned the Veterans in Residence program is 6 months long. Is that something like if somebody transitioning out can apply for and with the skill bridge, or like how does that
Yeah,
work?
I'll be honest with you. I want to say we might have the occasional like active duty participant. It's
Okay.
rare because it's just, the time commitment isn't necessarily
Yeah.
but it's happened. So if you're interested and this is what you want to do when you separate, or it's something you're putting together now, even before you separate, just because you're still active duty doesn't mean you can't do it. You might also have a business partner, and you just have them sort of go through it
Right.
on your behalf, or a spouse. We have lots of military spouses in the program. It's not all firsthand experience veterans. So maybe you have a spouse that's working on the business with you, and they could attend. Uh, but yeah, it's definitely something for people. In fact, we have a podcast called the Transition Podcast as well. That's the Bunker Labs official podcast, and yeah, I think we're very friendly to people who are just transitioning. They're in early stage ideation phase entrepreneurship. So
Yeah. So for our listeners and for those who will be watching this, the viewers, just make sure you guys are taking notes with what Keith was saying. And obviously, if you're interested, reach out to Bunker Labs, go to the website and reach out.
our
Um,
gorgeous new website. Yeah.
Keith, before we go to the second segment of the podcast, what's one thing you want our listeners, our viewers, to take away from this episode?
Uh, yeah, that's a crazy question. I think I just want them to know that Bunker Labs is here. If they're a veteran or a military spouse and they're thinking about launching a business, there's a ton of resources for them out there. Bunker Labs has a bunch. There's more than that as well, but you don't have to do it all on your own. I know that can often be our mindset, to just be
Right.
like, I'm going to do this my way, and I'm just going to go. I'm just going to do it, um, which I think is a very useful skill to have, and it's one of our strengths. But it can also sometimes slow us down or hold us back when we're not willing to ask for, just to see what help is available. Desperate to help you. So
Yeah, great point, Keith. I think that's one of the detriments, right? Like we always feel like we can try to handle everything ourselves when
I think there's a trust factor too, right? Where it's just like when you separate, you could learn pretty quick that civilians aren't always trustworthy the same way that the people you served with are. Certainly not to the same depth, and certainly not as quickly. And that can sometimes make you distrustful of people in general. So you
yeah.
just start to get more and more into that little self-reliant silo. And that ultimately is going to limit your options, I think, in most cases, versus being willing to be heard again. Reaching out and trying to trust people, or trust but verify, might work better for some of you.
Yeah.
But
Great point, man. So Keith, going to the second segment, this is what I call the Fast Five.
oh boy,
Just same 5 questions I ask all my guests. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, Keith. So first question, what's one hobby you enjoy?
I mean, I should just say writing, right? But now I do that. I get paid to do that now, so it doesn't count. So I'm going to say the one thing I do that I don't get paid to do. I play a lot of video games. I play Call of Duty like crazy, and I know that sounds probably lame, but the thing I'll add is that it's one of the ways I can keep in touch with a lot of old friends, like over the voice chat while we're shooting at people. And I don't know, maybe it's a veteran thing, maybe it's a me thing, but I'm not one to really pick up the phone and call people. I'm not one to really answer my phone should it ring either. I'm not a telephone person. But I will sit there with a buddy for like 3 hours during Call of Duty, and we'll sort of catch up then. So I play a lot of video games, but a lot of it is like there's a lot of socialization and keeping up that happens there. So
Check out Keith on Call of Duty. What's
now,
your what do you call it? What do they say that?
my gamer handle,
Yeah, yeah, handle.
it's Cap KAPP 1138. I'm on Xbox, although on Call of Duty, I think it does all the cross platform stuff now. Yeah, I'm on there quite a bit, a couple nights a week at least. I'm not particularly good. My KD, they're all elevated in this latest version, Vanguard, this World War II one. But my kill death is currently, it's like 1.16 or something around there. So I'm either assisting or killing somebody a little bit more often than I'm dying. But probably not the best battle buddy on Call of Duty that way, for sure. If you're trying to pump your numbers up, you don't want to play with me.
I don't even is that good or bad, or is that
It's
some
it's
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 between?
I mean, if the game's working right, everybody should be like right at 1.0, because it should be putting you against opponents that are about as good as you are, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So like it
Okay.
should all average out to 1.0, but I don't think they're there yet on that technology. Maybe one day.
So Keith, next question. If you had to choose one person to hang out with for one day, who would it be and why?
So I think Ernest Hemingway or Truman Capote, they're both writing heroes of mine. These are two of the early figures that were part of this movement in the literary world to make writing more accessible to more people. Basically, they were both trained to write like journalists, and they went ahead and wrote like fiction and creative nonfiction, respectively. But they brought that journalism sensibility to their writing, which is very like, just keep giving me the facts. Don't try like writing a poem in the middle of your story or whatever. Just
Yeah.
keep delivering what happened next. And like the who, what, where, when, why sort of stuff. So it was like it read sparse compared to a lot of the more flowery sort of adjective laden prose of the day. And it was a big sea change in like the 1950s. So I've always sort of, I'm not going to say modeled myself after them, because neither one of those guys led very healthy personal lives, but their writing, I've always sort of respected and looked at as like, I'd rather sound like that. That's kind of what I want to go to, instead of like a Faulkner or somebody like that. So either of those guys, I think it would be fascinating to just shadow them for a day, experience their process in motion, like as they're writing, see what they're doing, and quiz them a little bit over a few cocktails, probably about some burning writing questions I might have in the moment.
Yeah, what a day that would be if you followed be it Ernest Hemingway or
I don't think my liver can keep up with either of them, to be entirely honest with you.
yeah, yeah.
But no, I'd give it the best Navy try I could.
Next question, Keith. Recommend a book for our audience to read.
Yeah, so I have two. I think I mean, veterans to some extent were not the best communicators, and veteran entrepreneurs who I've just been dealing with for 5 months. I'll tell this to you with love. You all could learn to write a little bit better. So there's two books I would read to become a better writer. I think it helps you in every aspect of your professional life anyway, so it's worth doing. But there's Stephen King's On Writing, which is fantastic. And there's also Anne Lamott's Bird by Bird, which especially has a short essay in there called The Shitty First Drafts, which talks about just like drafting, just sort of barfing out all the words, and then you have something. I was talking with a veteran today who was interested in writing some memoir material, which is real popular.
Yeah.
Veterans want to write about their experiences, right? It's a way of sort of dealing with it, contextualizing it, and also like maybe you sell it and they make a movie, or who knows. But he was interested in writing his memoirs, and I told him, man, just read this part of Bird by Bird, Shitty First Drafts, and you'll feel a lot better, because you'll recognize that even the very best professional writers of today, your Stephen Kings or whoever you idolize, James Patterson, they all write really crappy first drafts. Granted, their first drafts probably still way better than mine, because they've stopped making the mistake that I'm still making, because they've written a few million more words than I have at this point. Yeah, it's it's freeing once you accept and understand that like this doesn't have to be good the first time I'm writing it. Like I'm going to go back and fix it later and make it good. For now, it just has to come out. So yeah, Bird by Bird and On Writing by Stephen King, both really great.
Is that within, you said that was within the book, or is that something in the,
Shitty First Drafts is an
yeah,
essay within Bird by Bird. That's Anne Lamott's book about how to be a writer.
okay,
Stephen King's book about how to be a writer is called On Writing.
on writing, right? I've heard on writing a couple of times, and
Yeah, I figured it was too basic to recommend because everybody knows On Writing, right? So I figured I had to give you an extra one.
yeah, the shit, I gotta look that up, the bird by bird. So
The Shitty First Drafts, like you could find that online for free all over the place if you just Google Anne Lamott
okay,
uh, Shitty
yeah,
First Drafts.
definitely gonna check it out. Next question, Keith. What's your favorite quote and why?
The thing I say all the time is "It is what it is," and I know that's like a super basic vanilla quote, but I say it, and it's when I say it, it's a way of reminding myself to take sort of the world as it really is in that moment, like what's the reality of the situation, and move on from there instead of getting very sort of spun up and focused around what it isn't. Like why can't it be like this, or why couldn't this have happened instead? It's just sort of like not a mantra. That's maybe a little too much, but it's a quote that helps keep me grounded in the moment and working on things I could actually impact, change, and improve about my life. So
It is what it is.
it is what it is, man.
Um, Last question, Keith. Where do you see yourself in a year, 5 years, or even 10 years from now?
Yeah, it's hard to say because like 3 years ago, I wouldn't see myself where I am right now, pre-pandemic stuff. But I think part of me has said, even before this, is that planning too far ahead is a fool's game because it's impossible to know like what's going to go what way. But I would hope that I'm as happy with the day to day of my life as I am right now. I would hope I'm still writing things I'm passionate about writing, whether it's stories about a galaxy far, far away with my Star Wars stuff and other sort of gaming content, or telling the stories of veterans and other, exceptional individuals and delivering those to people who need to hear.
Awesome, man. So, Keith, before we go, where can they follow you and where can they support you at?
Sure. So one place you could go is bunkerlabs.org. And in the next couple of weeks, I think, certainly before the end of the month, we will have a blog tab right at the top, and you could find all of my Bunker Labs related work there. I think that's the best place for your audience to find me and my work. Beyond that, if you're interested in some of the geekier things that I do, you could find me on Facebook at facebook.com Keith.Kappel. Should be me. So on there, I'll talk about my whatever sort of geeky projects I have coming up.
So if you all want to listen or hear about Keith's Star Wars stuff, go to his Facebook, Keith.Kappel.
Yeah.
And then check out the blog, the upcoming blog on bunkerlabs.org. So
yes, that's
awesome.
the place.
Awesome, Keith. Well, I appreciate the time, man. And hopefully I'll hear from you soon, bro. Take care.
Yeah, no, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much.